All right, everybody, we're going to start.
All right, everybody.
There's no loudspeakers, so if you later on there will be questions. You have an opportunity to come up and ask questions. So make sure you boom it out nice and loud. I guess you can just stand up wherever you are and just ask whatever question that you got. Welcome. Thank you for your interest in the law enforcement panel for writers. So you're here, because you want to get your facts straight, right? For law enforcement, you want to know what's what. So I'm going to start this out with some resources for you guys. You might want to take notes to get your facts straight. I'll start out and I'll, of course, talk about my stuff first. Cops and Writers podcast. I've been doing that for about 2 years, where I enter Cops and Writers podcast. It's on all the different wherever you consume your podcasts. I'm on there. That's more or less where I interview cops and writers. Pretty original, right? But I state, local, federal. I've interviewed all of these guys, and they will introduce themselves in a little bit, and it's just a myriad of experience up here. So I'm super lucky to have everybody here. So my Facebook group, it's about 6,500 people strong. You can just ask whatever you want. I've got cops literally from all over the world, from different walks of life, everything. I absolutely love it. It works out really, really well for writers. If you got a question, let's see here. I also have the Cops and Writers procedural books on Amazon. Just look under Cops and Writers. Adam over there's got the Writers Detective Bureau. He's got a Facebook group. He's got an excellent podcast, and he just answers readers' questions. They ask in the Facebook group, and he answers them on the air.
Writer's question.
Oh, yeah, excuse me, yes, right.
Your question.
Yes, your questions, absolutely. And he also has some classes, and he can talk about that a little bit later. Jerry Williams is a retired FBI agent. She has a very good podcast called FBI Retired Case Files, where she goes over one case with a retired FBI agent. It could be like a kidnapping, something really dynamic. She had the Gary Nessner. He was the negotiator during the Waco standoff with the Koresh deal there. So I interviewed him too. Super, super nice guy. So that's really good. And she also has a book. It's called Retired FBI Myths and Misconceptions: A Manual for Armchair Detectives, not quarterbacks, detectives. Yeah. So that's really good. Jerry's a good. I really like her. She runs a great podcast too. So, Game of Crimes podcast with Stephen Murphy and Morgan Wright. It's a lot of real life stories from police officers, any kind of law enforcement you can think of. So if you want to kind of get the nitty gritty about a certain case and the culture, etc., that's an excellent podcast for that. My friend Vic Ferrari, NYPD Through the Looking Glass. He's got a few books out on Amazon. It's all under Vic Ferrari, like the car Ferrari. He was a NYPD detective for years. Cliff Yates Show. Cliff was an LA County Sheriff's deputy for 27 years, 28 years. So that's more of the West Coast, philosophies and policing, etc. That's a good one. Other ways you can kind of figure all this out, go ask a cop. We love to talk, and we love to talk about ourselves. So, here's a couple of, when we're eating a meal in a restaurant, which didn't happen a whole lot for me in my career, but when we are, it's kind of a treat. So kind of wait till they're done, or close to done. Because more than, it's like, hey, I got this ticket, blah, blah, I'm like, I just took my first bite. Could I please have my lunch? I've got 20 minutes to eat. And it's like, come on. Or my kid wants to be a cop, blah, and my neighbor's doing this, and come up with something good and explain yourself. And say, hey, I'm a writer.
Buy their lunch for them.
Yeah, well, yeah. I say we can be bribed with donuts. There is no doubt about that. No doubt about that. If you want to, you could go to a police district or like their headquarters. Ask for their PIO. That's their Public Information Officer. Their PIO. That's a good resource. And there's citizen academies. those have been popping up for a while. That's an excellent way to get hands-on training, experience, and, bend their ears. Ask these cops a lot of questions. They're gonna love that. That's an excellent way of doing it. The only negative to that is time consuming. You have to make a commitment for that. How many people have gone through Citizen Academy? How long do they go usually?
Mine was 8 weeks.
Okay.
10.
12 weeks.
And are those 8-hour days or are they like 4-hour days?
4-hour evenings.
Oh, okay, so like
It's like
evening things?
25 years
Yeah.
ago.
For those of you who went through them, was it worth it?
Oh, yeah, yes.
Okay, yeah, so just check with your local PD or sheriff's department. I highly, highly recommend them. They're a great resource. All right, enough of me talking. Let's have everybody introduce themselves. I'll start with RJ and over there on the corner. They can say what their law enforcement experience and their writing experience is, and we'll go from there.
I'm RJ Beam. I have 4 novels out. I started in law enforcement in 1998 in the academy, 99 out on the street. Spent most of my career, like everybody, started on patrol, but I spent most of my career in investigations. I'm a CSI, or an evidence tech is the term we use. And the last 5 years now I've been full-time academy staff training. I think Pat did kind of forget to mention one really good resource.
Yeah.
Pat and I run a writer's retreat at the police academy where I am staff at, outside of Green Bay in Appleton, Wisconsin, called Cop Camp. And our website is Sleuths and Storytellers. And again, it's more of a writer's retreat, but it's very hands-on. So I know a number of you I've recognized from the old Writers Police Academy. Nothing quite as big as the WPA, just a small, we're trying to keep it to about 25, 30 people, so everybody gets a chance to do everything, but also a lot of time to just sit and talk with some of us.
Not to put Tracy on the spot, but she is an alumni of Cop Camp. Was it worth it?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. We had a gal travel from New Zealand. That was our furthest away person for it last year. Yeah, it was oodles of fun. I'd love to see you guys.
When is it?
May 16th to the 19th, 2024.
I'm sorry?
May 16th to the 19th.
Done?
That kind
Okay.
of thing.
And I think I'm going to be there. I think it'll be fun.
Yes, you
Um,
are.
If I'm still invited. I don't know.
Yes, you are.
Okay. Yeah, my name's Marc Cameron. I started out in law enforcement back in 1984 in Texas, a small police department in kind of near Fort Worth. Started on patrol, worked investigations. I was a horseshoer to help make ends meet because we made $6.67 an hour, and so I wasn't a very good rider. But since I was a horseshoer, they put me on the mounted patrol because I'd shoe their horses for my $6.67 an hour. So I worked mounted patrol, and then during that time, I applied with the United States Marshal Service and was able to, after about a 2.5-year ordeal, get hired by the Marshal Service and worked there for the final 22 years of my law enforcement career. Worked in Texas, Idaho, and the last 15 years of my career in Alaska, where my wife and I still live. I write Jericho. I wrote a number of westerns. First got published in, I think, 2003. No, I guess like 98. And then wrote a number of westerns, some ghostwritten, some under a pen name Mark Henry. Wrote the Jericho Quinn series about an OSI agent, Air Force OSI agent, kind of like NCIS, except for the Air Force. Our son happened to be an OSI agent. You write what you know, right? And I just started a series about a deputy U.S. Marshal in Alaska named Arliss Cutter. There's 5 of those books, the 6th one's coming out. But before I actually started those, I was asked by the Tom Clancy estate to write the Jack Ryan novels, and I wrote 7 of those.
I'm Adam Richardson. I've been in law enforcement since 1996. The majority of my time I spent in investigations, both the suit and tie detective like you'd see on Law and Order, and then a lot of time surveillance, undercover, looking like a biker kind of stuff. So everything
You
from
had hair then, right?
I did. I went from here to here. Yeah. I shaved it off and it never grew back.
I resemble that.
So I started working property crimes, then went to what we call the major crimes unit, which was sexual assault, robbery, homicide. Got burned out on the sexual assault cases. I liked working robbery and homicide, but could not do enough for my victims on the sexual assault side. So it was time to go do something fun and lighthearted, so I became a narc. And then after buying dope and chasing bad guys and stuff, I ended up in our counterterrorism unit that also did threat management stuff as well. So still played with the narcs a little bit, did a lot of work with the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force, was a task force officer for 13 years. And then after that, there was an opportunity to go fly around in helicopters, and that's what I've been doing ever since. As far as the writing experience, I'm the only one up here who hasn't written a book yet. I have 121 days, 13 hours, 32 minutes, 13. So the plan is to become a world traveler and full-time author upon retirement. So that will be my plan. But I do have the Writers Detective Bureau podcast YouTube channel, and it is solely to answer your questions. So you submit the questions, you can do it, write it, or got a little record button on the website where you can hear your own voice on the podcast. And then also have a few online courses as well. So writersdetective.com is the website. And then I have writersdetectiveschool.com as well. And that's it for me.
Okay, I'm Richard Rybicki. I'm a retired Chicago police officer. Finished my career as a homicide lieutenant on the north side of the city. I began my career in 1977, and I feel like the old guy here. I worked in almost every single unit in the police department. I started out in patrol, as everybody does. I became a tactical officer. I became a gang crimes investigator. I became a detective first in property crimes. Spent a month there. It was the longest month of my career. Then transferred over to homicide. Worked there for quite a while. That's the worst job you'll ever love. From there, I made sergeant, back to patrol. They love to send you back to your roots to learn the job, which is the right thing to do. And then from there, I became a gang sergeant. From there, back to homicide as a homicide sergeant. Was promoted to lieutenant. Again, back to patrol, where I was the Rush Street lieutenant, which meant the entertainment district along Rush Street. I ran the squad there that kept all the drunks in line. From there, again, not soon enough, but I went back to homicide and finished my career there. I have been writing almost my entire life, but not seriously until 2016, where I first published my first book, and I have 4 now in the series about a retired, disgraced Chicago police officer.
He's not disgraced. Let's make this clear. He's not disgraced.
I'm not disgraced, no. I'm still planning on continuing that series, but I'm starting a new series too, where it's a paranormal crime thriller. I met Patrick via his Facebook page, and we've become pretty good friends since then. He invited me onto his podcast, and I'm thrilled for all he's done with me.
Oh,
so you have to get on his website and listen to his podcasts. And
Absolutely.
it's great.
All right. RJ, I don't think you talked about your books, did you?
He mentioned.
I mentioned them.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't think you
I
did.
want to hear more.
All right. Well, all right. The way this is going to work, we're going to go over a few things, and then you guys will have opportunities to ask questions. So make sure you have some ready, locked and loaded. I went to the panel that Mark was on, writing what was that? Writing something
A thriller, like writing a
Yeah,
thriller.
right.
It's a really exciting title, write a thriller.
Yeah. And what really popped out in my head is the importance of villains. You know, you did a real good job with that, Mark.
Thanks.
And what really popped in my head was, you know, we've arrested probably just us, 2,000-3,000 people during our careers, at least.
At least.
At least. And out of all that, you can count on maybe one or two hands how many like true evil villains that we've arrested. Most of the time was people making really bad decisions, or were put in positions, or they put themselves in positions that would be conducive to getting arrested, breaking the law, you know, et cetera, et cetera. But every now and then you did bump into pure evil. And I thought it'd be kind of fun to talk about, so if you guys have any memories of like somebody that you arrested that was just pure evil, and what did that look like?
I don't recall any that were pure evil, but as a consumer of entertainment, books, television, movies, I found the antagonists that most interested me were the ones that thought they were doing the right thing. Always. Just, okay, Marvel Universe, Thanos, he believed he was doing the right thing. He was evil, but he thought he was not evil, he was doing good. The difference was, he believed his means justified the end, whereas right people know that's not right. Those are the ones that I did. But I think Pat is right. I never met really anybody truly evil for evil's sake, just to be bad because they wanted to be bad. They were put in positions or put themselves in positions.
Oh yeah.
Well, you got like a Hannibal Lecter, but you can even almost forgive that because he's psychotic. He's nuts.
I've met, interacted with thousands of people, had them in my interview rooms, and there's only one person I can think of where I was like, this guy is evil. And this was not an arrest situation. This was...
On a writer's panel?
You're giving it away. No, so he had been released from prison, and when he was sent to prison for incredibly depraved crimes, there was no such thing as the sex registry. Because I work in California, he got out, and he had to come register as a sex offender in our area, and a part of that is an intake, talking to a detective. I fill out all that information. The second he walked in the door, I mean, I'm not one of those woo-woo kind of people, but it was like the air got sucked out of the room, hair on the back of my neck stood up, and it was just like, and I'm taking notice because people don't do that to me. I don't get starstruck, none of that kind of stuff. People, I mean, they're drunk, they're idiots, they make mistakes, whatever it is. And it's a great way to build rapport when I'm interviewing them. But now I have a guy sitting across from me who is like complete sociopath. I mean, I can't even think of a character in print or media that was like this, or how you could convey that, other than it was just like, eyes look right through me. And then he tells me the story of what landed him in prison, which I'm not going to go into here, but it was just like, in the fact that he could just tell it like what we'd see in Mindhunter, right, where you have these serial killers, like it's a story for any other day. So yeah, he filled out the interview, he left, and then he ended up back in prison within about 6 months, which is where he died. Yeah, surprising. So it's more a feeling than it. Yeah, exactly.
ending.
It wasn't. Yeah, but you can't. When you meet evil, you take notice.
Oh yeah.
There's no, unless they're really clever like Ted Bundy, and they're social and can surprise people. But yeah, when you see it, you definitely know it. Even when you think you've seen it before, and then you're like, you know what? I have not met evil people until now.
Well, I think it's important to know when you're writing. Evil's subjective too, and when you write about like we've all said, we've only met a handful of what we would consider truly evil people, but generally speaking, we write about the big bad. They're the hero of their own story, and they have motives that to them are right motives, but we want the person that's bad to be bad and to be a great antagonist for our protagonist. I tell way too many stories. I don't want to take away from these guys because I want to hear them. But really quickly, there's a podcast called Spyscape. I was on that and interviewed on that about a arrest I made in Idaho. That's probably one of the most evil people I've ever met, named Farron Lovelace. You could Google Farron Lovelace. He's passed away, now in prison in Idaho, but truly, truly, truly evil dude. I will caveat though, when I say I haven't met a whole lot of evil people, there truly is evil in the world. And my wife will point out to me sometimes that maybe I think there's more than there really is. I mean, I was in the grocery store and I told her, walk on the left side of me. That guy looks scary over there. I think I might have arrested him before. And she said, "Mark, that's our neighbor." I recognize him. He was not evil, but really quickly, a friend of mine that was one of our profilers, if you will, for the behavioral analysis unit for the Marshal Service for sex offenders, because the Marshals, one of our main duties in the last few years has been to track down unregistered sex offenders and bring them in after the Adam Walsh Act was passed. And so it puts us out doing that kind of investigation quite a bit now. And they did a test, the government did a test where they followed 100 metadata. So they didn't put the pictures out there, but they followed the metadata of 100 very illicit child photos, horrible photos. Now, because of the Constitution and other things, they couldn't follow them to a specific person and go arrest them, because that would be a fishing expedition. But they followed him to blind, unique IP addresses for 30 days. How many unique IP addresses would you think it went to in North America in 30 days? They had to download all 100 to make the list. In other words, people that downloaded 75 of these horrendous photos didn't make the list. Over 1 million unique IP addresses. So when we say we haven't really dealt with a lot of evil people, there is serious evil out there. And that's what I think we need to tap into when we write. And so when we write, or at least when I write, and I think from talking to these guys, I think we tap into that Fair and Loveless guy. And like every villain I've written has had a bit of Fair and Loveless in him. There's a guy, and then I'll shut up now, but there's a guy named Israel Keys that was a serial killer. He's also, you can read about him. In many of the books you read, the FBI is the hero, but really it was a APD, Anchorage police detective named Monique, or we call her Mickey Dahl. Fantastic investigator that really broke that case. And I remember being in an interview room with Mickey, an FBI agent, and we were custodial, so because this guy was a dangerous dude, he tried to escape many times. And I was in there, I was the chief, I was in there because I was a writer. And I remember this young FBI agent, this guy, Israel, is asking, he's wanting to tell his story about all the people he's killed, and he'd kidnapped and murdered a girl there in Anchorage. And he said the FBI agent was listening to these stories, and he was just taken aback. And he goes, "Why?" And Israel looked at him and said, "That's the difference in me and you. You say, why? I say, why not?"
I don't know how I follow that up. It's funny because when Pat sent the email, I was thinking that, of how many people, we just chalk it up to, they're just batshit crazy. And really, one of the last homicides I went to, a young lady met a guy on one of the dating apps. They go on a date, not a real spark. She's not creeped out by him in any way, shape, or form, just no spark. They still text, but she's like, "Yeah, I'm not going to date, not interested." But he keeps texting her, and she's thinking, "Oh, we're friends." She puts him in the friend zone. Well, he starts making some comments about, "Hey, I saw you were out with a guy," or what. She's like, "Hey, are you following me? You stalking me?" He's like, No, I was just going to get groceries, and I happened to be at Piggly Wiggly, and you were walking into Fazoli's and whatnot, and I saw you were the guy, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm seeing somebody. Like I said, we're not going to date." And he sent her a message saying, "I will kill whoever you date." And she's kind of like, whatever, blocks him. About a month, 2 months later, having a nice bonfire in the backyard, drinking some beers with her new boyfriend, and this dude comes walking around the corner, slits the new boyfriend's throat. He went so deep, damn near decapitated the guy. I mean, nicked into the spinal column. Took the knife, dropped it in her lap, and said, "Told you so,"
Wow.
and walked away. So our officers get there, and I mean, she's just speechless. And when she finally can speak, she's like, it was Adam. It was not that Adam. It was Adam. And
Good time, man.
sitting down talking to him, he felt justified. He's like, I told her what I was going to do, and I did it. What did you expect? Like, he played it off on, it was her fault. It wasn't his actions, it was hers. But yeah,
How's he doing?
I don't know.
The guy that got his throat cut.
Oh, he's not doing very well. I pray to God he didn't last very long, because that was, yeah.
That's the problem with cops, is the dark humor.
Oh, there's that. I don't think I introduced myself. According to the sign here, I'm Patrick O'Donnell. Did 25 years in the city of Milwaukee. I retired in 2020. Started out in patrol and stayed in patrol through my whole career. I promoted as sergeant, did 17 years as a street sergeant. I supervised and had fun playing reindeer games with the cops. I had a gang squad. I had armed robbery squad. I had all kinds of fun stuff. Great career. And I spent all my time on the street. For me, being a patrol supervisor, being on the street as a sergeant, was the best job in the police department. I didn't want to go any higher. I would have made more money as a lieutenant, like this guy. But I didn't want to be behind a desk.
The sergeants run it.
Oh, yeah, if you're crafting your stories, I mean, the captain is in charge of their district. The lieutenant is in charge of their shift. The sergeants are in charge of the cops. They're the ones that are on the street that actually make everything happen. They're the ones who make most of the decisions.
Absolutely.
And they have to make them fast. So that's what I did, and I had an absolute blast. No regrets. It was super duper fun, I thought. But as far as evil goes, I must be really unlucky because I bumped into a lot of just horrible people.
Well, Milwaukee,
like I said,
Wisconsin.
there's a lot of, it's like, hey, somebody's drunk and makes a bad decision. There's a heat of the moment thing. I'm not making excuses because they're still breaking the law, and there's victims. There's a lot of talk, popular media or whatever, criminal justice reform, yada, 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 and I'm not saying that's not warranted, but they never, ever interview a victim of one of these crimes. It changes you forever. And even a simple, like, house burglary. You're gone at work during the day, you come back, all your shit's gone. Everything. And some people can't recover from that. They don't have the money to buy more stuff. And you never, ever feel safe in that house again. No matter how many Ring doorbells you put up and attack German Shepherds and Belgian Malinois or whatever, it changes your mindset. And there's one reason why, because some asshole decided to do what they did. So always keep that in mind with your stories as well. Okay. How about something lighthearted? Does anybody have a fun story or a feel-good story?
Nothing
for
I
me?
can share.
Chicago guy.
I do have kind of a funny one about Sean Penn. You know this story.
I love this story.
Okay, it was in the early 80s, so it was a different time in police departments. You have to keep that in mind. Well, Sean Penn is a young actor. He's making one of his first movies in Chicago about being in the juvie hall in Chicago. And he does a ride-along with a couple of guys on our team. Not me, but a couple other guys. Well, these two guys, John and John, they're real big practical jokers. So they go out there doing their thing, and me and my partner are doing our thing, and we see a bunch of people standing in front of what we called a syrup house. When heroin dried up, they started selling codeine cough syrup out of little styrofoam cups in the 80s. So we stop a bunch of these guys, we have them on the wall, we call for backup. And being on the gang team, everybody from your team comes if they're not doing anything. So John and John come with Sean Penn. And Sean Penn's like standing off to the side now, out of the way. And while we're shaking down these guys, and a couple uniformed patrolmen pulled up. We're all in plainclothes. A couple uniformed patrolmen pulled up that didn't know too many of us, and they see Sean Penn standing off to the side. And they're like, hey, you, get on the wall. And Sean, and Sean is like, oh, no, I'm with those two guys over there. You know, I'm riding with them. And so naturally, what does the uniform guy do? He has to confirm this. So he goes to John and John, hey, you know this guy? And they're like, we never saw him before. So again, a different era. The patrolman walks up. The patrolman walks up to Sean Penn and what we call the pimp slap, and he just about knocked him down. And then right away, John and John are like, oh my God, and they no, we were just kidding. He's with us. Sean Penn held his water, never complained, never said anything. And years later, on the Johnny Carson show, Dennis Hopper was on there talking about the movie Colors that Sean Penn had a big hand in, and he told that story where Sean Penn comes to him, hey, I got this great story about gangbangers at a syrup house. He goes, syrup house? What the hell is a syrup house? And so they changed it around.
That's good.
Oh, that's good. Anybody else have anything?
No.
I mean, if you want feel good, so young patrol officer, we've got a liberal arts college in our town, a music conservatory, and get a call from campus safety. They're just, meter maids basically. But campus safety calls and says, hey, they have a girl in the dorms attempting suicide. She's in the bathroom, her dorm mates are saying she's in there with a knife, and there's blood all over. So with the weapons, campus safety is not going anywhere near it. So we go over, we go up, come around the corner. We're thinking that we're going to have to potentially beanbag her. This is before tasers, so we're kind of talking, what are we going to do to, disarm her, keep our guys safe? Come around the corner, and there's this young lady with no pants on and a baby crowning. And so immediately, guns go away, gloves on, and deliver a little girl. So she had been hiding her pregnancy. She had been all school year in sweatpants and hoodies, and she had come to campus, went to a party the first weekend, got pregnant, and had just been hiding it. And she later admitted, she was probably not in the right state of mind, and she was just gonna, leave it in a park or someplace and hope somebody would find it, and was just keeping it all secret. So it's kind of nice because one of the questions every cop gets asked, and we were talking about this last night, how many people have you shot? How many people have you killed? And I can say, never taken a life out of this world, but I brought one in.
That's right. That's good.
I'm gonna circle back real quick to the evil thing after your feel good thing. Yeah, when you're writing your story, and I see this on TV, movies, books. One of the biggest glaring errors is you have to become this evil person's friend.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to get a confession out of them, when you're in this little interview room that's the size of a broom closet for hours, you got to become their best buddy.
Mm-hmm.
And it starts at the time of arrest. We responded to a homicide, little old lady, she was like 73, 74 years old, 5 foot maybe, and this guy bludgeoned her to death. And I won't go into the gory details, but he wrapped her up in some carpeting, shoved her behind a back patio, and her grandson found her. And it's a long, torrid story, but I almost lost my job. I'll never forget the look on that lady's face. And I wanted to bludgeon this guy. But I had to keep my cool, because if I became the asshole, if I started screaming and going all up into him, then he would just shut down. Then detective whoever it's an uphill battle. It's like, man, that cop, that sergeant, whoever, man, they were dicks. They were assholes. I'm not talking to you. So what did I do? It's one of those scenes where we were there from about 8 o'clock at night till 5 o'clock in the morning. And he was in the back of a squad car. And I said, hey, can I get you anything? He's looking at me like, why are you being nice to me? And I said, you hungry? He says, yeah. I said, what do you want? McDonald's Big Breakfast. I love McDonald's Big Breakfast. And I'm like, okay, I'll get you that, but see those detectives over there? You have to talk to them and you have to cooperate. You know what you did. Yeah, and again, I just wanted to reach in there and just, it takes so much self-control. And the amount of self-control that cops have amazes me. So I gave my cop $10. I'm like, hey, go run to McDonald's, get this guy a big breakfast. So I saw the video later. He's pouring his guts out. He's admitting to killing in detail how he killed this little old lady and hid the body while he's eating his big breakfast. But at the end of the day, he's rotting in prison now. So we did our jobs right. But when you're writing your story, it can't be so confrontational. It can't be, it's like, you see that all the time. Don't go down that rabbit hole. So, tell you what, we don't have a whole lot of time left, but who's got questions? If you could stand up, go ahead. I'll grab you real quick.
If you're trying to, one of the things, I'm writing a novel set in 95.
Oh, perfect.
How did the OJ case, before and after, how long did that affect?
Ooh.
For a long time, because I'd arrest somebody who's like, OJ, and I was like, really? This is Milwaukee, for God's sakes. I had nothing to do with OJ. How about you guys?
One thing OJ did in Chicago was changed the way we did forensic work.
Yeah.
Right.
We used to send out 1 or 2 evidence technicians. They were sworn guys who really had no training. They'd take blunt standards, photos. They'd look around like this and go, there's no fingerprints here, and they'd walk out. And that all changed with OJ.
Yeah, just remember that it wasn't really OJ that was on trial. It was LAPD.
Right.
And they didn't fare so great. Just facts are facts. That's why. Guilty as sin, but got off. Who else? In the very back.
I have a question for you, actually.
Oh.
I love your podcast.
Thank you.
I can't remember which episode it was. You had a couple on there, and you talked about habits that you still had even after retirement. And one of the things you mentioned is that you unbuckle your seatbelt. Do you remember what I'm saying? What I'm talking about?
Vaguely.
I tried to Google why a cop would unbuckle, like before you even come to a stop, you unbuckle, and I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
I don't understand
yeah.
why.
The way we're trained is you wear your seatbelt, and about a block before you go to where you are, you take your seatbelt off. Because you might people might be shooting at you, or somebody's running away from you. So you don't want to be trapped in your seatbelt. Real quick story, I'm a brand new rookie, I'm on field training. I'm at 7th and Keefe at 2 o'clock in the morning. There's over 100 people at a gas station having an impromptu party. It's just me and my FTO. I'm wearing my seatbelt, he's not, he never did. And I never did after this night. What happened was we roll up and instantly, pop, 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 gunfire. Almost everyone hits the deck except for the guys with the guns. And now the chase is on, you're swinging, and I'm like this. I'm stuck in my car. If they're shooting at us, I'd be dead. So I'm like, no, in an urban area like that, never. Unless I was chasing someone, or I was in a chase, I put that thing on all the time. But that's why we would unbuckle. It's like because you got to be ready.
Well, the old Smith & Wesson 459, 59, when they first went to the semi-autos, the seatbelt would sometimes hit the mag release.
Mm-hmm.
And so you get in this habit of, as you roll up, popping the seatbelt, making sure you got bullets, and then getting out.
Did you start with wheel guns, Mark?
I started with a
Me
Smith
too.
686. Yeah.
And one more thing, before they got smart and had patches embroidered like on the vests and stuff, we had metal, badges and a nameplate. Every freaking time. Ching, ching, ching. Everything goes flying. Yeah.
Or you rip your
Go ahead,
shirt.
Nicole.
So, I grew up in Madison, by the way.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yes,
I
and-
lived there for 6 years.
And I was just curious, so were you, how did the Jeffrey Dahmer case affect Milwaukee? Because obviously that was huge as a high school when all that.
I was going through the selection process when the whole Jeffrey Dahmer stuff was going through, and there was a couple of lawsuits because of the Jeffrey Dahmer incident, and that slowed my path to becoming a Milwaukee cop. That's how it affected me, but in a good way, I got to know the 2 detectives that interviewed him. And they were probably the 2 best detectives I've ever met in my life. those guys could.
So
They
for you.
were, yeah, okay. I never saw any of you in action.
Know your audience.
Never saw you guys in action, but I'll tell you what, they could. I would guess almost 100% of the time they went into that little interview room, they got a confession. I mean, the bad guy or gal was like almost begging to talk and tell them about their crime. And there was never raised voices, there's never swearing, nobody's beating anybody up. They were just that good at talking and crawling inside these people's heads. That's what, for me personally, that's what that was.
And those are the two that, not the two that let him go. So those
No.
Okay.
All right. Okay, in the corner, baseball hat.
Shall I stand up?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm a British crime writer, and a lot of crime writers know technology is the thing that really makes it difficult these days. How has kind of technology going to change since you guys started? What are the most profound differences it's made to law enforcement?
Well, I asked my son, who he was a police officer for 8 years. He's 30. What is he now? 31. Not long ago, I said, "Hey, did you get a teletype on that thing?" He goes, "No, because it's not 2021." So emails. We were talking just when we came in about officers. We have this sort of dark humor. Now, a lot of officers are getting in trouble because they'll text some joke to each other, and then a savvy defense attorney will just want a download of everybody's
They'll
phones,
subpoena your phone,
and they'll subpoena it. So they're learning as they go. Okay, this is on, but some friends of mine, I won't say their names, but some friends of mine are snipers, and they were on a real case, working Overwatch as a sniper, and they went to these nice people's house, and they said, "Can we set up our hide in your house?" "Oh, sure. We'll get out. This is dangerous." So they sat there, and for 2 hours, there was a bowl of chocolate-covered almonds. And they sat by their thing, and they're like, "Well, I can eat one." And then they ate another one, and then they ate another one. Pretty soon, there's like 6 chocolate-covered almonds left in the bowl. And as they're leaving, the sergeant came up and goes, "I need to talk to you guys." "What?" "Well, there's a Ring doorbell camera outside." Well, the Ring didn't get them eating the almonds. It got something else, a conversation. But they immediately were like, "Holy crap, we got caught eating their almonds." So they had to take almonds back. We're just being watched everywhere, which is not a bad thing. But it is something you can't smack Sean Penn.
I'll say probably one of the weird, smallest things is we had every street, side street, alley, even addresses. Which blocks would have which addresses? Our cities, we had our maps in our head.
Yeah.
These kids today, the squad computer, the call comes up and it's got the GPS map, and you start talking to them about something, and they're going, "Where's that?" How do you not know every section of the city?
Yeah, you're right about that. It makes you dumb.
And they should be teaching them in FTO.
Well,
Yes.
they should
Well,
be. But.
when I started, when dinosaurs were
Academy
roaming
guy.
the earth, we hand wrote all of our reports and used carbon paper. So,
I miss
but I
those
saw
days.
from that to everything was on a computer. So,
Seven copies of carbon.
oh god,
in our,
that-
7
and
copies.
I went to Office Max and got my own carbon paper because the stuff in the assembly was really crappy. Everybody had their own little stash of carbon paper. It's like, hey, I had the good carbon paper. That's great.
Hey, after this is over, I'll be out in the hallway and happy to answer any
Yeah,
questions.
we'll all
I think
be out there.
everybody will be. So.
Hey, I gotta cut it now. I'm over time. So thank you very much for all of your support. Really appreciate it.